What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Collider Interview Studio at TIFF 2024. Brought to you by Range Rover Sport at the Cinema Center. I can't contain my enthusiasm for this movie right now.
Do we get a Range Rover as a parting gift? I just want to say.
I mean, isn't Range Rover Sport just the absolute best?
Okay, sorry. Didn't mean to derail things, but I need a new car. Okay.
I need more movies like The Substance in my life. My God, it really is something I was just saying before. I felt like I left the theater like buzzing and like I was on fire in the best possible way. Thank you for your movie.
Thank you so much.
Coralie, I want to start with you in terms of crafting this story. I'm curious, what is the one specific idea that kind of kicked it all off for you? But then also, did you have a break story moment on it? Something you came up with along the way that made it feel whole?
I would say the one thing that gives this story, bring this story to life, I think would be my life. Since I'm a kid, I think about how, I have to live with my own image and how I learned to be super violent about it. And it made me feel that I was never good enough. And at each age, you have a reason that you can find that something not enough. And I questioned myself about the violence of it. And when I was past my 40s and aiming to my 50s, it became even more violent that now this is it. I'm going to be erased. It's the end of it. And I felt that it was so absurd, but at the same time, so real, this thought being here, that I wanted to say, okay, I have to do something with it. It's time now to kind of say enough. I want to let this, violence go out and hopefully make a change.
You sharing that personal experience via a film is definitely going to inspire a lot of other people struggling with the same thing to find peace with it. So again, thank you for that.
Thank you. I hope very much. And also I want to say, I don't want to add another injunction to women to now you have to feel good about yourself, because it's such a path. And I think it's when you grew up, with all those injunctions, getting rid of them is a long journey, and it's step by steps, and each one his own rhythm.
Never-ending journey we always have to work
exactly.
on. I have a specific kind of, rules and lore question, because I tend to get obsessed with the details. And I am curious, when you came up with the idea for The Substance specifically, did it come to you kind of fully formed, or was there any kind of playing with how it works?
Nothing comes fully formed when you write a script. It always starts with an idea, with some intuitions. In my case, with some images and some sound, which start to give the vibe of the movie that I want to make. And then I think it's step by step that you get to the core of what is really important, and that the ideas arrive, because I think thematically, you kind of make it clear what you want to discuss, and then you welcome the ideas that's going to symbolize it the best.
Oh, so effective how all this came together. All right, Demi, Margaret, I'm coming your way now. I don't know if this is exactly how you approach your role, but someone recently brought this up to me, and it's been weighing on my mind, how when you start on a new project, it can be a little scary because you're on unstable ground, and then you have that moment either in prep or on set when you do something and you have just found your character. Did you have that moment with these characters? And if so, how did it go?
There's a really interesting aspect, because this doesn't have a lot of dialogue. And so for me, I felt like I needed to do a lot more work before I even got to the set to really have all of Elisabeth within me, everything, so that it was like alive at all moments, everything that was occurring. So it wasn't really that it took place on the set, but I think you're right, that can happen where you kind of lock in. But for me, it was almost like really before I got there.
Makes sense. How about for you?
I mean, I'm like Demi, I do a lot of work before I come to set. So for Sue, for example, a lot of it was about a physical transformation, like working out and trying to make my body be what Coralie had envisioned for Sue, which was like more curvaceous and strong, and also I had some help from a prosthetic team because she needed to have big boobs, and so we glued some boobs on, and that the physical transformation does a lot, and then also just like I spent a lot of time walking around my apartment freaking my husband out by like by like, you know, like kind of like walking, doing Sue in the house, which he didn't like. Yeah, so I guess there's all of that, and then there is you know, to your point, the feeling when you're on set and you've you know, in the case of Sue, you've got the extensions on, you got the boobs on, you got the outfit on, and you're like, well, we're doing the thing.
It's true. It was extensions everywhere.
Yeah, it's like almost you've lost all mobility, and there you are.
Hearing you both say their names is making me think of this. Coralie, I don't know how much thought you put into this specific detail, but a character's name means a lot. So how did you specifically settle on Elisabeth Sparkle and Sue?
Well, I work with symbolism in my movie. There is not a lot of dialogue, so yes, image and sound. And I think everything that kind of symbolize in a very simple way and meaningful way, I like it. So I for the sparkle, it was this idea of, you know, to shine, to be under the light, and to, yes, have this, you know, moment that means happiness. And I guess, Elisabeth, I don't know why it came that way, but probably because it had this, you know, iconic resonance of, you know, all the big movie stars in the past. And I remember at some point, you know, somebody tried to make me in production maybe change the name because we didn't want to have like legal issues, or I don't know why. And I said, no way. I don't know. I knew, you know, this name was important.
For Sue, I always thought, and I don't know if we talked about this, but I always thought it was because of the shape it makes while you say like Sue.
It's like interesting. It's
one of the first shots.
It's like,
I didn't think about that, but I guess like
I noticed that in that performance beat.
Yeah.
It was kind of like inherently sexual, just like
Well, I think the Sue stuff for me, it probably had some kind of of sexy connotation, like this stuff that Lolita baby doll, like it represents, I think, this to me, and again a way to symbolize what Margaret's character was.
For example, the name Margaret like doesn't like lend itself Margaret, you know. It's just like
for what it's worth, Perry doesn't either. To dig into Elisabeth a little more, and I don't know if this is something the two of you discussed, but it really stuck out to me in the movie, and I appreciate it. So the substance essentially like takes a sledgehammer to all of the absolutely ridiculous expectations society places on how women should look. The movie also never judges Elisabeth for chasing those expectations, which I really appreciated. Was that intentional, and did you two ever discuss it?
Well, for me, of course, like the whole idea of the movie is like to make people understand why we think we have no choice but to chase that, because that's the only way, I think, for a long time society has valued women, you know, like through their appearance, through the fact that they are young, that they are sexy, that they can give birth, that's, you know, and as soon as, so that's the way that you build for yourself some way to be loved, some way to have a place in the world. And when this go away, no one doesn't want to have a place in the world anymore. No one's want to disappear. So I think many of us think that the only way to still have a place, to still have an existence, to still have people loving us is through seeking, you know, eternal youth or like hypersexualization. And so I wouldn't blame anyone for just wanting to exist. And I think the way still society is structured and everything that is around still make us feel very much that's the only one of the only way that we have. It's starting to change a little bit, but I think it's going to take a lot of time until like we really feel for real that that we should take our place in the world. So I don't know for you, Demi.
Well, I think what's interesting in the film is that it's so intimate in terms of it really is the experience for Elisabeth with herself. Everything. I mean, there's external situations, but it's so what I loved is that it's so much more about what she's doing to herself, not even what's the judgment that's even happening outside. I mean, that, kind of kicks the film off with that level of despair and rejection that she's feeling that I think we as humans all can relate to. But I think it's interesting that you say that there wasn't a judgment, because I've never actually thought about it, because I was so much more inside of it. And what she was doing to herself was so much more violent than anything that was happening on the outside. Okay, minus Dennis and the shrimp.
I will watch any horror movie, body horror, you name. I will not flinch. I think watching him eat the shrimp might be the first time in years that I actually lifted my hands to cover my eyes.
No, it was, I think also because when we were shooting it, the sound, but also he was so committed. He was so committed. I mean, I don't know how many shrimp he actually ate that day.
I think he ate 2 kilos for real.
Like it was, but like just, I mean, Dennis, came in after we lost Ray Liotta but was so gung-ho, so all in, and really was fearless, I feel like. I mean, he really was fearless, but but that
also came in after we've been working for like 3 months and gave us like a
little energy injection with his hot Dolce & Gabbana red suits. And
I'm going to steal the word fearless now and apply it to both of your performances. When you were gearing up to shoot this, is there any particular scene or quality of your character that, you had the most fear about approaching?
I would say it's hard because pretty much just like everything. Everything was scary.
I mean, I think we both were exposed in different ways. Like Margaret was pushing her body in this overly sexualized way, which was different. Like for me, having to show up every day and it not being about highlighting the things that were my least glamorous, my least, attractive, and that. At the end, though, I don't want to speak for Margaret, but I will. I think we both had aspects that were very liberating at the end.
Totally.
Because we are one.
We are one.
Oh, I can't wait to talk about certain things that I'm not allowed to bring up right now, but I want to make sure to sell your movie to people who haven't seen it, because it is phenomenal. So going back into the idea of needing to be fearless when tackling this, I feel like one of the most important things with having the confidence in yourself to do that is having the right scene partner by you. So can you each tell me something about the other that, made you safe and gave you the confidence in yourself to go there with these roles?
I think we were with each other 100%. And, obviously we didn't have as many scenes together, and the ones we did have, we were naked on a cold tile floor. And so I feel like we
know each other really well.
Yes.
Inside and out.
But I think what we really, it was just instinctively looking out in a very, comforting way.
I also just instantly loved Demi.
And the same.
I've loved her from afar for a long time. So then having the pleasure of meeting her, working with her, and getting to know her has just been the best.
I'll follow up on that. Can you each tell me the first thing you saw in the other that, made you say, Demi is the perfect Elisabeth Sparkle to my Sue, and then vice versa for you?
I don't know if there was any, I feel like as soon as Coralie mentioned Margaret, first of all, I already knew the depth and integrity of where she was wanting to go. And that it was not just about this external, image, that it was really about somebody who could deliver from the inside. So I it was already gung-ho, let's go. All in, because, I think that Margaret, is willing to get dirty. I feel
that in her career too. I mean, she's delivered iconic role after iconic role. G.I. Jane's one of my favorites of all times, but she's someone who's always pushed the boundaries and surprised everyone with how she shows up, going to new territory, and this is an obvious example of that.
that quality in all of you is what keeps me coming back to your work. I'll ask the two of you now to give Coralie some flowers, because obviously you need a good leader at the helm to feel safe and comfortable going to these places. So what is something she did for you as an actor's director that you think teed you up for success?
I mean, this is one of the
I think it was the script.
Yeah.
I think, like, when we sat down, like, you don't come across material that's so complex and, that
it's such a unique
is
world.
daring, that is also creating a visually riveting world, So I think Coralie is very detailed, and so it was like she laid it out there for us.
Coralie, I really want to ask you about some of the I guess the blood, the gore, the prosthetics. I'm not going to push it too far, so I'll stick with a broader question for this. But for another filmmaker who kind of wants to swing as big as you do in this movie on their own film, what would you say is one do and one do not you would recommend for doing heavy prosthetics based on your experience making the substance?
I would definitely not recommend for a first movie to do that much heavy prosthetic, because I think it's good that you've already explored how complex a shooting can be and have a little bit, experience before you go into that world, because it definitely creates like beautiful stuff and amazing, but a lot of constraint in terms of shooting. And it's true, like the amount of prosthetics that we had is like almost unknown since, the Thing and the prosthetic supervisor ended up in mental hospital, I think, after the Thing, because it's huge. And I think we don't realize how it adds a lot of complexity to just, creating great performance, and everything was kind of tied to those constraints in terms of timings, in terms of the order we had to shoot. So sometimes we had to shoot in totally absurd order because of this prosthetic constraint. It's so many hours in the chair to get this done. It's so uncomfortable to wear. So definitely that's not the easiest for the actors to work with. And so that's why also we ended up like having such a long shoot, because I wanted to do everything for real, but then we ended up shooting almost 5 months, I think. So, when you talk about it, you say, oh yeah, it's good, let's do it. And when everything becomes long, all the difficulties are kind of heightened, because like you don't have the fresh air to renew yourself. You were mentioning Dennis. He was the new element that arrived. It's true that brings a little bit of something different. Otherwise, it's just almost the three of us in a white room with prosthetic doing the same thing over and over again, because the film is very obsessive and, very redoing the same scenes, in different directions. So I must say, like, I think we did we did good going through all this, because it was very challenging. It was, I think, very uncomfortable at some moments, because they had to bear with all the technical challenges that is not, I think, the easiest for the actors to have to work with.
First-time director, don't do.
Yeah, like to answer the question, like, and after I think it's I think it. On the other side, it also brought, I think, what is also unique in the film. Like, I know that Demi, you created your iterations of your characters by wearing the prosthetic, and I remember she never complained 1 second of the long hours in the chairs, because I think that's kind of where you were putting also the suit of your performance, because
you start to embody
exactly
through the transformation. But it is, I think, physically for all departments, because when you're in the chair anywhere from 6 to 9 hours, and then you have only so few hours to shoot, and we were doing something that was also not still, it was very physical, which this is very delicate, like all the stuff around the face. Like, I think you were talking the other day, Margaret, about how like it would start to be
Well, my
falling
problem
apart.
was I was having to like cry while I had the monster costume in. So this is graphic. At a certain point, you're just like swimming and there's like a layer of tears and snot inside your
then you
prosthetic.
can start to like see,
and they're just trying to like
raise up, and you're
re-glue
like,
it down, and you've just got like pools of like tears and
snot
glued to your face.
And there is the whole industry around them to kind of cool them. Like there is hoses to do air cons in the suit. Like they could only drink with a straw, like to refresh. So
Notice how she said, Demi never complained. Well, that was pointed.
Everything you all went through to pull that off is something else. Beautiful. I've seen a lot of things. I've never seen anything quite like that, but also like my horror movie loving mind appreciates seeing big swings like that, but ones that are done with purpose and have something to say. So job well done, every single layer with that. I did want to ask a personal question for each of you based on the content of the movie, because again, this movie basically says like a big fuck you to every single expectation that is placed on a woman, whether it is about how her body must look or how she operates in the world. So can you each give me an example of something about yourself or the way you operate that you thought was wrong, and then you came to realize like, no, like you all suck. This is my truth and I'm going to embrace it now.
I mean, so many things. I used to my hands and feet really bothered me as a kid. I have really big feet, and I would put my feet into like way too small shoes, and then that made them worse. That made my feet worse, because then your like toes are kind of like and I used to like sit on I've got like big long hands. I was just like a tall, like, I was taller than all the boys growing up, and then I remember someone telling me my knees were weird, so I stopped wearing dresses for a long time. Like, just all kinds of things that you're just like, well, I'll never show my knees again.
No, but that's really the craziest things that really happen. That's what I mean. Like the craziness of it is like how true it is and how strong it is and how violent it is, and that's crazy. Yes, that is.
Well, yeah, we all I think have little things.
I mean the number of the ones I have, like no, but totally, and that's and I think, to be honest, like for me, I would say I think you have it for life, like, and you can just pretend sometime that it eases, and it does eases, but I think you find another thing once you get rid of maybe, okay, the feet are okay, then it's, okay, maybe my elbow are problematic or whatever. Like I think it's the mental process that is so strong. It's endless, I think.
No, it really is. I feel like it's unfair to ask you all for an example without giving one. I'll never forget when I first moved out to LA and did my first Collider video. One person in a comment section was like, she needs to wax her lip. I left, fucking waxed my lip for the first, now I'm cursing, for the first time in my life. And then nothing looked any different after. I'm like, I just listened to a commenter for a stupid reason that didn't apply. And I think about that all the time whenever I see a comment that criticizes something. And I'm like, that's probably not true.
True.
And who cares?
It's not true.
Who cares?
Yeah.
So for me, so I feel like I've had my own journey around placing a lot of value, especially when I was younger, on my body and what it looked like, and that if it wasn't thin, that I was less valuable. But what I've come to really see, and I do believe it is an ongoing journey. Like, we come up against things, but there's a couple of things, which is, we have the circumstances of our collective consciousness that has for a long time seen women's value as diminishing as they age, as there being certain, idealized body types, faces, looks that are, more desirable than others. But at the end of the day, I feel that all of that is in service to us, that it's happening for us, not to us, that it is there essentially so that we can actually get to the place that is of self-love and self-acceptance. Because, what other people do or don't do is irrelevant. How we hold it is everything, and that's what creates our reality and our experience. It's like you believing that your upper lip was not acceptable then made you insecure, but thereby you did something. But to get to the place now where you could, that doesn't actually matter. But you wouldn't have known that without that experience.
It's very true. It's very true. I'm going to lean into self-love for my last question. This is a question I've gotten in the habit of asking a lot lately because I think it's very important. In this industry, we give each other awards. I think that is super cool. We should keep doing that. I find that nobody says good job to themselves nearly enough. I want to know something you each accomplished, making the substance that you know you'll be able to look back on and say, I am so proud of what I did there.
I mean, I think there isn't any one piece. I feel like it's the whole. I feel like, you know, for me, knowing that I was like letting go of actually needing to look good, letting go, and that, you know, I don't know if there's like, I can't say one thing. I think it was tackling the whole.
I mean, if I like really am honest, for me
dance?
it was, well, there's that. I wasn't gonna say that, but I was gonna say in relationship to the conversation we're having right now, it's like I'm meant to be playing perfect, right? And like no one can fucking play perfect. No one's perfect, and I couldn't. It wasn't my idea of perfect. Now it's, you know, I'm going to what Coralie's idea of perfect is within the concept of her, you know, under male gaze, within the context of her story, right? But even that is kind of impossible to do, you know, like we're relying on prosthetics and working out and all these things. But I guess just like the reality is that I didn't realize how like emotionally challenging that was going to be, to try to look perfect. So trying to be kind to myself throughout that process, and like protect myself within that, as naturally you kind of never feel perfect. And I think in life, I'm pretty okay with that. You know, like I like what is different about me, and I can be pretty nice to myself. But when the idea is to play quote unquote perfect, it can be really hard. So I guess I'm proud of like not losing my mind.
I get it. I respect the answer. Good deal. Coralie, you want to take us home on this one?
Yeah, I would say a bit like Demi. I don't think there is one specific thing, but for me, obviously, like just to be able to achieve the movie, like to, as you said, from the very first idea till now, us here, it's 5 years, you know, of having to fight a lot to gather everything, to get the movie financed, to, you know, not lose my creative freedom, which can also happen, you know, for some films, stepping into the English, you know, world of making film, but still doing it at home in France, which was great. Yeah, and basically like accomplishing what I had in my head. It's you know, it's a long journey. It can be really tough on the way, I think, for all of us. Like, but in the end, I'm really proud that the movie respond, because I think, yeah, I allowed myself to be strong and ambitious, and to think that this movie, yes, was important, would matter, and would have a response in the world. But in the end, you never know. So that's great to have it here.
And I'll just add, if I may, that I think that one of the parts of the self-love is also being able to depict Elisabeth, to have the rival with Sue, but to be here today, also representing being an older woman, that we aren't that, and that we don't have to rival, that we are connected and we are one in other ways. And I think that that's part of the living, you know, part of the legacy of what we've shared.
Oh my God, that's so true too. love all of you. I love this movie. Seriously, you should be so proud. You made a movie that is just like bonkers and wildly entertaining, but also a movie that I deeply believe is going to make people out there who see it be kinder to each other and also themselves. And that's a really beautiful thing that we need more of.
Thank you so much.
Huge congratulations on the substance. To everybody out there, do not miss the movie. Also, stay tuned. We have so much more coming your way from TIFF 2024.